Good question. I think I was missing something um, as a narrator full time. I like, as a performer, to have a lot of feedback, which is why I love the theater. I like that interaction. It's not an affirmation desire, although that is part of it. I think in large measure it's the interaction in what's being created or what's being discussed or expressed or what have you. And I think that's what really appealed to me about radio during those days. There's an audience there, a real living, breathing audience that's chosen to spend time with you, however long their appointment listening period may be. And I think in audiobooks, while I love what I do in there, I love story, I love the challenge of building character and lifting narrative and text off the page and making something real out of it. I love all of that. The challenge is immense, and I embrace it. What I don't have though with that is that audience. I mean, there's an audience out there, of course, and I do sometimes hear from them in terms of mostly from reviews, an occasional email from a publisher or an author saying, "Hey, great job, love what you did there," and that's immensely valuable to me and very gratifying. But I think I was really looking for that audience interaction where there's something a lot more. I don't know, authentic maybe is the word I'm looking for than just simply likes and comments and things like that. You know, the 21st century way of having audience. I really like the idea of having that audience that I can interact with. And even though there's not going to be a listener line anymore, which was really fun, there will be things like email panels and surveys, whatever I decide to do, that will help me to bring the audience into what I'm doing more and more. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think the more that I develop the idea for the audiobook trail, the more I realize that I'm building a radio show. That's all I'm doing. And so, you know, once I came to that realization, I kind of swept my desk off and started over building a clock and deciding on how the show was going to feel and what the features and elements would be, and building it like I did in the old days. And then as I began to start to rehearse and then record mock shows, you know, that I could get something down on tape, as it were, and then go back and go, okay, let's critique this. What worked? What didn't? What do I, and all of that process, which has taken a while. I realized that I was just building a radio show, and so a lot of the podcast experts, and there's a lot of them, and they're all very smart, very successful, and I mined that very rich field for jewels. I found a lot of them saying, you're going to be editing a lot, so make sure you leave time for that and get skilled at that. I'm already skilled at that. I did a lot of editing in radio, but I do that also in audiobooks when I produce. But when I was doing live shows, there was no editing. Essentially, you did the show from start to finish, and if you goofed, or if you really goofed, you'd have to issue a mea culpa. There was no recall button. There was no unsend. It's out there. And I really loved there's a tremendous energy that's built into that idea. And I really loved that. And I want to get that back. And so I don't see myself editing this podcast a heck of a lot, barring the doorbell ringing or, the dog going crazy or something like that. Look, if I make a mistake, I'm going to laugh about it and we're going to move on. That's been my MO all along when I've done shows on the radio, and I'm going to look at this the same way. Without a doubt, there's kind of two. Can I give two? Okay, yeah. I think the biggest challenge technically has been getting used to using social media. Social media for me, my whole career has been mostly a fun thing. I really haven't ever figured out a way to use it effectively for business. And frankly, I really haven't needed to because I'm so relationship driven. I mean, I have relationships with my clients and authors that I work with, and I don't, I'm not a big notice me kind of person. I've never been that way. And I'm not judging that. Everyone's personality is a little different. And again, I'm kind of an old soul, and so social media has always seemed a bit awkward to me outside of like a family context, where you find pictures of the nieces and nephews and all that. That's great. So the biggest challenge for me, knowing that I'm now going to be in the podcastosphere, as it were, social media is a big part of that content creation space. And so getting that set up, coming up with strategies on how to do that, I've had to get a lot of advice, and I'm getting it, and it's going to be like a giraffe on roller skates at first, but I know, as with all things, every journey starts with that first step, and I'll get proficient at it, and if I don't, I'll find somebody to help me. But the challenge I was going to mention until I thought of that technical one is just the waiting. I gave myself a long time to get the show ready, and what I found was it went so smoothly. It was like riding a bike, everything, because I had a lot of anxiety. Am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to remember? I've been out of that for 13 years now, 14 years this year, and a lot's happened. And I built an audiobook business and did a lot of coaching and training and retooling and relearning and starting from scratch and a lot of different things. Was I going to be able to get it back? And it was really surprising in a very, very good and gratifying way how quickly I got back into that mode. And I've gotten now, even though the show hasn't launched, to me it's launched months ago because I've been working on it for so long. I really have gotten to where I can flip the switch back and forth from narrator to podcast host, narrator to podcast producer, audiobook back and forth, quite easily. And it's a joy. I have so much fun putting the Audiobook Trail together, and I'm really looking forward to, once we launch, we'll be kind of in that, the pump will be primed, and then we'll be moving forward. I'm really looking forward to that new content coming out and building that audience and getting to know them more and more. Can't wait. The waiting is the hardest part. Yeah.